You're live.
Okay, hello. Starting a little bit late, but this is Coach Red here in the beautiful Ubuntu Fish Gallery. It's in Stuart, Florida, and it's absolutely a beautiful environment to be talking about parenting and just change of environment. It's such an interesting story. I'm here with Dana Sardano. So Dana and I met when my daughter was in a yeshiva high school in Boca. She was the stud developer.
Oh my God!
So what that means is, on her badge, for some reason, they decided to shorten the word student instead of the word development.
Yeah.
So she was the head of student development, and she walked around with stud development on her shirt. It was very,
Rightly
very
so.
funny.
Rightly so.
She was developing studs and whatever
I do
women
what
were
I
called.
can. I do what I can.
So this is Dana, and she has an incredible journey of parenting her two daughters and coming to this beautiful, beautiful location. And I want to just kind of pass the floor. So Dana, how did you come from Yeshiva High in Boca to Ubuntu in Stewart?
Oh my
The
goodness.
short version.
Oh, I'm going to do my best. Anybody who's watching who knows me knows that's a challenge in itself. All right, so I became a teacher because it was just my natural inclination. It was just what, they say some teachers, they go to school to teach and some are gifted teachers. So there was just one of those things, I just became a teacher. And I loved doing it. But as I was a kid, I always kind of wanted to be an artist. Like, when you're like this big and they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was always like a veterinarian or an artist. And then that went by the wayside and I, went about my life. But I was always creative. And I worked at Yeshiva High School when it was Yeshiva High School, Weinbaum Yeshiva High School, Katz Yeshiva High School. Like, I was there from 2001 to 2016. I already feel the story getting long. I mean, oh my God, I hear myself. It's not that I'm not aware of this, all right? Anyway, long story short, in 2015, I had just married my husband. I had two beautiful little girls. My life was beginning to shift. I was single for a very long time. I had my children, don't judge me, in my late 30s. I was 38, 39.
There's no judgment. That's so normal now.
Yeah.
A lot of women are waiting deliberately till that time.
Well, I had my children at 38, 39. I got married at 42, so that's the judgment. But anyway, that's for another day.
all the Yeshiva High people.
Yeah. I'm great. We were there. We know. But anyway, when my children were little, January 2015, we had a babysitter on a Friday evening, and I asked my husband, hey, let's go to one of those painting classes where you go with a bunch of women, you drink wine, and he's like, nah. He's like, I'm gonna hang out with a bunch of ladies drinking wine. He's like, well, what I'll do is I'll take you to Michael's, I'll buy you anything you want, and we'll go home and we'll paint. I'm like, this is something different, rather
We
than
have to do that.
rather than using our babysitter to go to Costco, right?
Yeah.
We're like, let's go do something. So we went to Michael's. We had no idea. We're like, okay, we get the 12-pack of canvases, and we go home, and I'm like, Robbie, I'm gonna paint you an elephant. And he was like, oh my God, I think you're good. And in that moment, and there's really a point to this story, and it will weave into parenting, I promise. In that moment, something woke up in me, and I was like, oh my God, I love to do this. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm gonna be an artist when I grow up, at 43, by the way. Or, oh my God, I'm gonna quit my job. It was, oh my God, I love doing this. And every night I would come home from work, I would put the kids to bed, and I would put the sheet on the table, and I would paint. And I became, it was crazy. They'll tell, at school, I would show up with paintings, and I'm like, I was like, Oprah, you get a painting, you get a painting. And I just couldn't stop. And
I don't remember my daughter getting a painting back then.
what year was it? When did she graduate?
You're putting me on the spot. I don't remember.
I don't remember either,
A
but
few years
she's
ago.
25.
So it was several years ago.
It was
So
several
maybe-
years ago. It was past her.
Oh,
for
okay,
sure.
okay.
I was already, when she was there, I was like, I'm a teacher, and then around that time, I was like, I think I'm growing out of this place. So she was already waiting.
Okay. I knew that now.
I would show up, I was giving paintings away in my office. I had this beautiful office with windows, I had paintings everywhere. And then I quickly morphed into some people commissioning me to do paintings, and then even continued into, doing the occasional art festival, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was January 2015, I picked up the paintbrush for the first time. By August 2016, first day of school, school didn't even start, first day we had to be there, I walked into Orly Cantor's office, and I was like, I'm just letting you know, I can't do this anymore, no knowing I can do that.
Oh.
And I said, you've got me for the year. And remember, I created that position. I created that job. I was there. The school was a fetus when I started there, you know? And I was like, I can't. And she understood. She understood. My life had been changing. So I spent the year. And by June 2017, I was done. I left. I was making a really nice salary. I left everything that was stable. My beautiful and supportive husband said, hey, listen, if you're going to leave this job, that you're doing, financially, and I'm like, I'm not tutoring anymore. Like, I used to tutor 1 billion hours a week for SAT. Like, I'm not tutoring anymore. This is what I'm doing now. I'm going to be with my children. I want to paint, run around without shoes all day. I want to be me. I want to speak my soul, right? And he's like, okay, midlife crisis, So he's like, we'll sell the house. We'll live in a cute little house by the beach in Lauderdale by the sea. Sell the house. We'll move out to Jupiter Farms, buy a less expensive house. We'll ditch the car, drive the fancy car. This is my status symbol. We'll get you a car that's paid for, and we'll do this, And we did. So for 2 years, I picked up a quick part-time job teaching art to kids at 2 days a week. I would go, I would color, cut, paste, and go home. So at least my husband didn't have a nervous breakdown, and at least I knew like the Costco bill every 2 weeks was paid, or the night phone. Like, it wasn't really making any money, but it kept everybody sane. And then this, in like March 2019, I had a lot of friends. This is a very spiritual place. I have a lot of friends that are very, very connected to the divine. I won't get too specific, but they're very connected to the divine. And I have a lot of friends that are artists, and what I've learned is that connection and creativity, they go hand in hand, and they grow in tandem. When you nurture one, the other one opens up. When you nurture this one opens up. It's really, really beautiful. If you look at my paintings, they all scream of love and joy.
Yes.
Well, if that's not divine, I don't know what is, right? And so I said to my friend in March, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we opened a place and we got these friends together or these friends together, and we go, and she was like, yeah, that's really cool. And the thing snowballed so fast. That was March. By May, we're looking around in Stewart. By June, we found this building. By July, we found the money. By August, we closed. By September, we opened. So that's how I wound up here. How does that all weave into parenting? The one thing that I learned very early on with my children, I was very, very fortunate to have been an old lady when I had both of them. I didn't appreciate people stopping me when their babies asking if I was their grandmother. But the one thing that I learned is I spent 20 years in education before they even showed up. I watched what worked. I watched what didn't work, right?
Yep.
I grew out of my patterns and my toxic behaviors and my dysfunction. And by the time I had them, I was able to parent them. And the one thing that I learned quite a few things, but the one thing that I learned was, I cannot be the parent to them that they need if I am not well, happy, and whole myself.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
Yep.
And if, I just got the chills from head to toe, so that must be true.
Yeah,
right?
we parent from how we were parented. We parent from our own function or dysfunction.
That's what I was trying here. That's what I was going to say, because that's
Yes.
our own dysfunction or function. And what happens is, and I'm going to add fear to that, right?
Yep.
So when we parent, and I've seen,
I think I parented with fear mostly.
yeah, and that's why I think that I am so fortunate. I always have these accidental acts of brilliance. You know what I mean? I try to claim them as my brilliance, but I just kind of stepped into it. Oh, okay, that works, right? And the accidental stroke of brilliance was having my children at 40.
Yeah.
Being an educator for 20 years before I had my children.
Right.
And this parenting from dysfunction, I watch people who were abused as children, right? Again, their parents didn't wake up and say, I'm going to be abusive today. They just were parenting from their dysfunction, right? And they were abused. So they say, and I watched a whole generation of kids in my education, I watched the pendulum swing from being really too hard on your kids to what I call the puppy syndrome. There's going to be so many people that are annoyed with me. And the puppy syndrome is when you're at the park, and it's like, come on, puppy, let's go. I don't wanna. Okay, 5 more minutes. Get in the car. Right? So their dysfunction is, I don't want to be what my parents were, so I'm going to come over here and I'm totally going to enable them to think that there's no accountability, they can do what they want, when they want, and I don't have to cite examples, look outside.
Yeah, enabling, coddling, letting the kids rule the house, all of that.
Right?
It's interesting because I had my kids in my 20s. I was very, very young when I had my children. I was. And I just did whatever the next right thing was, and I yelled a lot, and I married an alcoholic, and
check.
thank God they really did make it to adulthood alive. And, it's a different dynamic. It's a different perspective. I was practicing on my kids. You got to practice on other people's kids.
Oh my God, I practice on your kid for God's sake.
She loves you.
Oh my God, I
To
love
this
her
day, she
too.
loves you.
But you know why? And I remember her class very, very well. I mean, I love them all, don't misunderstand me, but her class I was very, very fond of. And there's always just the mixture. It's like a magical group sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
And the reason I think that typically the kids that I have, there's always the few that are not on the Sardano fan club, the bandwagon. But for the most part, because they know I saw them, and they know that I was rooting for them, and I held them accountable, and that's like the next talking point, right?
Yeah.
So there's this misunderstanding that I've seen in education, and you also see it in parenting. This is the enabling, right? Because I love this child, and we're talking about students and our own children, because I love this child, I want to give them what they want. I want them to be happy.
And I want them to like me.
I want them to like me. So at the Yeshiva, with all due respect, I loved it there, I loved everybody I worked with, but there was a lot of, I don't want to upset the kid, I want the kid to like me, I don't want to be waves, right? And the kids, what people don't realize is children don't feel safe when you do that. Yeah, they love that you gave them a pound of candy.
Yeah, but they want rules. They need guidelines by which to live. They don't know.
And I used to say at the Yeshiva, it's high school, right?
Yeah.
I used to say about the kids all the time. You can see my faculty meetings, and like I'm like banging my fist on the table. You don't understand. And I would tell them, it's the teenager's job to lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's their job to try and get away with it. It's their job. I'm not judging them for it. I don't judge a dog for barking, right? It's our job to hold them accountable. So if we just accept, he's a teenager, he lies, and you let him get away with it, because the teenager's inclination is to push a boundary, well, if the boundary is here, they're going to push it to here.
Right.
So if we keep moving the boundary because, they're just teenagers, then you're going to create a child that A, doesn't understand boundaries, B, doesn't feel safe, and C, will always try to one-up whatever it is they did, right?
And will also, for themselves, have no limits.
Yeah.
Like, nothing's ever going to be good enough because the bar keeps moving. So that also happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had a kid years ago, and I don't know where she fell, and where Danielle is, before or after, but I remember her saying, I wish my mother would give me a curfew.
Interesting.
Right? Now, of course, she's thrilled in the moment. Yeah, I can go out, I can see my boyfriend, I can do this, I can do that. But her real wish, and she had a lot of emotional problems.
Sure.
Because it's all tied into this.
Because does my mother really love me if she doesn't care enough what time I come home?
And that's all it comes down to. So the one thing the balance that I learned to strike, well, I practiced on other people's children, that I practice with my own. Now, listen, let me throw out my disclaimer. Do I yell? Do it, yes. Have I lost my temper? Yes. Am I perfect? No. And all of those things, but I'm very mindful, and I think that's important.
Yes.
I'm very aware of my parenting, and I'm willing to accept responsibility when I step out of line. So I just want to say
that's important.
Oh yeah, I'm not
That's
sitting here on a high horse being like I am the perfect parent because kids are kids and
I used to yell at Daniela specifically. After high school she went crazy. Like I did not recognize who that girl was. She was such a good kid in high school, and then bam, the next day. And I used to say to her, tell me when you come home at night so that I know you're not dead. That's not nice either, and that's parenting from fear and giving them guidelines at the same time,
Yeah.
So
So to throw the spin on that, the balance with that, to be able to parent with accountability, that's the big one, right? To parent with accountability, hold the children accountable and still do it with a loving hand. So I find, right, so you have a pendulum. I find there's and I'm going to talk about younger kids now. So I'm a parent of a 9-year-old. 9 and just turned 11. They're 16 months apart. They're really close in age. And the 9-year-old is it's as if I took a rib and created her. She is me from head to toe. She's feisty, she's defiant, she's awesome. Love her. But she's going to be the devil. The other one will look you in the face. Oh, yes, mommy. Oh, sweetest honey. But she'll do what she wants anyway. So there's two different kinds of defiance, which is I guess when I decided to parent, I'm like, okay, you want to parent at 40? Boom, there you go. But what I find
you're going to be tested every day.
Right? So you have the one, right? I'm going to just deal with the defiant one. You have the one that I can fight with you. You're going to do it my way. And that there's the other side of the pendulum that's, well, let's talk about it. Here is why I want you to do what I need you to do. And that's not really good either, I think. I think when you open that, you're giving the child too much power. At the end of the day, yes, they're human beings, right? Yes, their feelings matter, but I'm still a parent, and there are still things that at your age and your development that you don't understand. So if I tell you not to grab the cat by the tail, I don't have to give you a 3-page dissertation on why that is. So some things need to be swift. They need to be swift and forceful. And some things do have a little bit more intense energy connected to them, right? Sometimes there's yelling. I'm trying to be polite, right? But when the emotions are calm, I always say you can't argue with an angry person or a drunk person, right?
Right.
When the emotions are calm.
Or a child when they're doing something really bad that you need to stop them.
Exactly. Well, that was a drunk person I was talking about. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? When the emotions are high, you can't really reason with somebody.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to have the discernment to say now is not the time. So there's a balance between dropping the hammer and come here, puppy, right? And handling the situation, and then sitting down with them when everybody's in that place of is open to receiving the lesson.
Right.
Because my kids are like, oh, another freaking lesson.
Well, you know what my daughter said to me, my younger daughter, who's 22 now, she said that, you know, Mom, you're lecturing when you said more than 2 sentences. I'm like, oh my God.
I love
Because
it.
sometimes I'll be like, you know, I'm trying to teach her about finances and teach her about just living life. She's graduating college this semester, and it's like, oh, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? What am I doing? And so I'm sitting here thinking, well, she wants like an entire finance lesson, doesn't she? Like, no, she doesn't.
Oh, that's awesome.
And,
what do you mean? I don't understand.
right, like she'll say to me, you know, I went to Starbucks and I had enough money in my account for like my fancy Huzawat's coffee, and I'm like, oh, well, didn't you look at the budget before? And why didn't you look at the budget? And if you have a budget, is it on an Excel spreadsheet? Do you need help with that? Mom, that's more than 2 sentences. You know, I just had coffee this morning. Like
Oh, that's great.
So it'll be different when they get older.
Yeah.
And my girls are also like day and night different.
That's mine.
Yeah.
They're like, they're here and here. It's
Tell me how they came to be your husband's children. I say that in that funny way. But yeah.
So my children, Nadia Bella Sardano Scamboloni, which I have to share because talk about not thinking that.
Talk about an alcohol.
And Nana Dolce Sardano Scamboloni.
So when you're angry, do you say all that?
No, we actually just use the Sardano.
Okay.
That's my name. Even though if you'll see me on Facebook, it'll say Sardano Scamboloni. But
Okay.
if you read Scamboloni and hear me say it enough time, you understand why I kept Sardano. And I also was like 150 when I got married. At that point,
150.
you know, you got a mortgage in your name, and everybody's calling you Sardano, and you're like, you're cool if I just keep this, right? So anyway, when I had my children, should I become like? You want me to go completely like?
If you want, yeah. I mean, it's not raunchy, is it?
No, but what I told you. Remember what I told you the other day on the phone that I had a little secret?
Yeah, it's up to you. It's your
I'm
secret.
sure.
I have said nothing.
When I was in my late 30s.
This is good, guys. So those of you who are listening, make sure you select like and love on this because this is a cute story.
Okay, so when I was in my late 30s, I had been single for a very, very long time. I had never really had very serious, because I was working on myself. So all my relationships were toxic and dysfunctional until I figured it out, and now I live a friggin' fairy tale. I don't know if I can say friggin' out.
You can say for him.
Friggin'.
Yeah.
So I met this young guy who's about 10 years younger than me. I was in my late 30s. I was in a great place, a great career, owned a place, did a motorcycle. Like I was like kind of doing that thing, and I kind of enjoyed the fact that this was like a younger guy, and I was being a cougar, and it got a little bit out of hand, and I got pregnant. Yada yada yada. I got pregnant, and it was okay. We're in your late 30s. I didn't think I could have children. I had a doctor in my 20s tell me that I couldn't have children because I had some serious medical condition at the time. So it was a surprise, and it was like, okay, you're gonna do this. I understood the father, lovely guy. I understood we were not in alignment. I understood. I called him flight risk, but I was like, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna do this.
And you also felt like this pregnancy was a gift because you didn't think you could have a kid.
Exactly.
So it was a decision.
Exactly. And I'm 37 years old at the time, right?
Yeah.
So I also understood I worked in a religious institution, and I understood the morals and the values, and that I was a role model, and that it was important that I, be respectful. So I lied.
So you lied. That's
So I
how she
lied.
navigated
Because,
this.
that's my moral compass.
Right.
And I went to school and I told them I got married. I'm like, yeah, I got married. And then 6 weeks later, I'm like, oh, by the way, I got pregnant. I'll tell you, this part I didn't share with you, but this is interesting. 30 seconds after I walked in and said I got married and I got pregnant, and this happened.
Oh.
And at this point, I was like, I had to convince myself this is what I want to do. So at this point, I was like, oh no, this is what I want to do. Because
Right.
and within 2 months, I was pregnant again.
Oh, so you kind of conditioned your body that yes, I can get pregnant, and now I want to be
Yeah,
pregnant.
and it was a beautiful little lesson for
I
me.
got chills on
You
that.
know what I mean? I don't know if you guys ever saw the Friends episode when Rachel, she took a pregnancy test and Phoebe lied to her and said, no, you're not pregnant. And then Rachel's like, oh. And then Phoebe was like, oh no, you really are. She goes, what do you mean? She goes, well, this is how you know you wanted to be pregnant. And Rachel's like, well, that was a risky little game. So anyway, there's my little aside for you. But, so I get pregnant with Nala. And then after I have her, I decided, oh my God, she's so cute, I have to have another one right away. Meanwhile, all my friends are like, what are you doing? This guy's 10 years younger than you. The writing is on the wall. You know you're doing this by yourself. What are you doing? I'm like, no. I have to have another one. It's going to be a girl. They're going to be best friends, Life's going to be perfect. I'm working 2 jobs. I'm handling everything. I'm supporting the family. All of us.
Yeah.
And so I have the second one, and to spare you all the details, I got some very tragic news when I was 6 months pregnant with the second one. She had some serious health issues and congenital heart defect. She was airlifted when she was born to Miami Children, full open heart surgery when she was a year old. It was no joke. And I found out within the same month that their birth father had not only been cheating on me, but had been cheating on me in multiple different, multiple sources. And all while, living in my house, being well taken care of, blah, blah, blah. So obviously that relationship was ending. I was committed not to end it after my second one was born because I knew we had priorities. So now I'm 6 months pregnant, totally cheated on, totally betrayed, having a baby. It sucked.
That's not the emotional environment you want to be pregnant with. No.
No, I'm like, take a breath. So this happened. So I had Nadia in January. By May, I had ended it with this man. However, I understood the importance of keeping a family together and wanted my children to have just a healthy environment. So I remained friends with this guy.
Okay.
And I let him live in my house for a little bit, and that didn't work out because it was kind of unhealthy. But then we kept this friendship. Fast forward, maybe a year and a half later, we both meet our significant others at the same time. I meet Rob, we call him St. Rob, he's the man. Rob is all in. Because I'm like, Rob, we're spending holidays with this guy. I'm not doing this whole back and forth thing. We're going to spend holidays, I'll have him at the house, it's going to be like a commune, everybody's going to love each other, the kid's going to have 8 parents, it's going to be great. This is all my vision, and everybody's going to cooperate, right? So that's what we're going to do. So he met somebody who was not on board. It created dissension, and he pulled out of the equation. And then he did that thing, again, parenting from his understanding, from his dysfunction, that he's going to come back when he feels sad. So I'm going to disappear for a month, come back. And my kids were young. They were like babies. They were 1 and 2, right? Excuse me. Somewhere around there. And I was like, no, this is not going to happen. I wanted to do this communal thing, but now you can't do this. My kids aren't going to grow up with abandonment issues because you are now passing on your abandonment issues, right? So I'm like, now we go to court. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the child support thing. I know you can't get blood from stone. I know all these things, but now we have to do it this way. So we were in court for a year or so, and this went on. Again, then we did visitations where I was present,
And all of this just so that you can keep their father in their life is really why you did this. It wasn't about money.
yes,
It was about visitation and...
oh my God, it's so bad about money. So I'm going to sit up for this because this is really, really important.
Okay.
I had, in these moments, when I found out that this guy that I'm taking care of, essentially, that's living in my house, and I said, quit your job, go back to school, I'll handle it, blah, blah. This guy had betrayed me in the worst possible ways. And I had to put my ego aside. I had to put my dysfunction aside and my pain buddies aside and all of those things aside to say, listen, I have these 2 children, one who's coming and the other one who's a beautiful little girl. And I have to make sure that I'm breaking the cycle of my existence.
For them.
For them, I had to put that aside. So I stayed with him. So I lived with this guy another, few months till she was born. Then another 5 months after that. Cried every day after the day she was born. Gynecologists or the obstetricians throwing pills at me, until I had to end it. But always trying to do the right thing for them. Trying to keep this family together. And but, oh my God, their birth father's girlfriend. I'm like, buying her Christmas gifts. Like, I'm really trying.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you know what I'm saying? Like, over the top. He had a daughter before mine. And I'm trying to, bring her mother in. Like, I don't know what happened.
You don't have any boundaries for yourself at that point.
At that point, I didn't have any boundaries for myself because I was so focused on, I don't want to live the way I grew up.
Right.
That I did the pendulum thing.
Yeah.
Right? I
You
was all the way over
overcorrected.
it.
Yeah.
I totally overcorrected. Like, if I was on a bicycle, I'd be in a ditch. Like, I'm totally over it.
Right.
But I put myself aside. It got to a point when we were in our court proceedings. The details don't matter. I've already taken too long to tell the story.
Yeah.
But he finally, like I said to him, listen, you owe me a bunch of money for default student loan. You owe me a bunch of money for child support. You owe me a bunch of money for medical bills. Remember, I had a bunch of medical issues.
Mm-hmm.
I said, it will all go away. Give these children an opportunity to have a family unit, to have a father that is there and stable. Let him, let us have that. And he did. He really did a noble thing. Now, other people have opinions, and they won't call it that way. And that's their business. But the narrative that my children are growing up with was, he's a hero in the story.
And why is he a hero?
He's a hero. This is their birth father.
Yes.
Rob is a hero because if you met him for 5 minutes, you would understand. I'm sitting in the most beautiful place in the world because he said, yeah, quit your job. Sell the car. We'll buy a Jeep. Like, he is the support beyond supports. But their birth father is a hero, or at least they think he's a hero, because I tell them every day, when they were little, so it was like catered to their age level. I was like, you have to understand, you have daddies that want to be daddies. And what makes a daddy? My daddy, he works, and he does this, he does that, he farts a lot, what daddies do, right? And I said, and some daddies, they think they can handle all that, and they can't. So what they do is they step aside, and they allow for daddies who want to be daddies, and maybe can't be daddies on their own. And then they step aside, so it's oh my God, then why is a salty discharge? So
yeah, this is the good stuff.
This is the good stuff. So I said he loved you so much that he made that sacrifice so you could have a daddy that can actually daddy you properly. And that's the story. That's a story. So they live their life. Rob, the little one, she met Rob, she was just under 2. She doesn't even understand that they're not genetically linked, right? Like, oh, do I look like daddy? We're like, so they are so in love with it. And sometimes I feel like the odd man out. I'm like, I gave birth to you, right? I carried you. So it's really
But little girls have to fall in love with their daddy because that's part of their individuation
Yes.
and learning how to love another man in the
Yes.
future.
Yeah. Rob is always like, my God, Nala's going to bring home a bald fat guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's kind of what they have to do.
But this is a beautiful thing.
But I want to clarify, in case it wasn't clear,
Okay.
that the birth father actually gave up custody and rights as a father. He signed it legally, and Rob has legally adopted the 2 girls, and they're a family unit. So you got everything you wanted.
And
It just doesn't look like you thought it would.
Yeah, exactly. I got everything I wanted, and I think people fail to understand sometimes that if you really just be what you want, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, then you will
Be
get what you want.
and then you will get what you want. And I had to work very, very hard to work through my dysfunction, toxicity, my, parenting. I don't want to say bad parenting, because my parents just parented based on theirs, yeah. But I had to work through that in order to really be able to parent my children in a mindful, loving way. And then all the pieces came together. And it doesn't look like yours, and it doesn't look like yours, and it doesn't look like anybody else's, but I live it, and I walk on air every day. It's beautiful.
Nice.
And my children, oh my God, I'm like talking, they are such the poster children for being well-adjusted. It's really a beautiful, again, I don't bang our heads together on the regular. Don't misunderstand.
No, but you know what? Parenting is all about love, and that's what this whole story was, and that's why I wanted to do this live event with you. And I think we're gonna actually stop the live shortly, and I'm gonna close with that. Love is what matters when it comes to children. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how many fathers were involved in making this child, and making this family.
That was awesome.
You know, it is what matters is that the kids have balance, boundaries, and love. Yeah, and accountability.
Yeah.
And accountability. And I thank you all for watching this live event with myself, Coach Red, and Dana from Ubuntu Fish Gallery. You can look her up. You can look her up and like all her stuff and come up to Stuart and buy all her lovely paintings, which she considers her babies also. and you can like Communication and Parenting with Coach Red. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at Rochelle Strauss, and subscribe for newsletters at www.coachred1.com. Do you have a website?
Can I throw a couple things out there?
Please do.
I am www.ubuntufishgallery.com. It's UBUNTU, Ubuntu. And I'm all over Instagram and Facebook with that.
Okay.
But I also have a YouTube channel called The Love Seat that we film out of here. Me and my
So
girl.
like that too.
So, yeah, check that out because
I'll check that out.
we just sit, 20, 30 minutes and we just talk about the ways of the world, like how, like in our silly little ways, how we solve the world's problems.
Oh, that's so nice. And it's just called The Love
It's
Seat?
called The Love Seat because
Okay.
what's it based in? Love.
Right.
Where's it shot?
The
Love Seat. So it only makes sense.
Have a great